Welcome! Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a chapter of history that's often just skipped over. A chapter that connects the ancient world to our modern one, bridging what many call a dark age. We're talking about the incredible, world-changing contributions of Islamic civilization. So, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we've got to get our terms straight. Then, we're going to look at a pretty common myth about history. After that, we'll dive into the brilliant era that totally shatters that myth. And finally, we'll talk about why all of this still matters, right here, right now. All right, first things first. To really grasp the massive scale of what we're talking about, we need to quickly get on the same page with two words: civilization and culture. So, when we say civilization, think of it as the hardware of a society. It's the big picture stuff, the systems, the technology, the institutions. It's really all about progress on a huge scale. Okay, so here's how they connect. You could say culture is like the unique software for a group of people, their beliefs, their values, their art. But when that culture reaches a whole new level of organization and starts making these huge contributions that benefit all of humanity, well, that's when we start calling it a civilization. Okay, so with that in mind, I want you to think back to your history classes. There's usually a very specific storyline we're all taught, right? It kind of goes along a straight line. Yeah, you've seen this before, haven't you? You've got the glory of Greece and Rome, then this big empty gap called the Dark Ages, and then boom, the Renaissance and this big rebirth in Europe. But here's the question we need to ask. What if that period wasn't dark at all? What if, while the lights were dimmed in one part of the world, they were shining brighter than ever somewhere else? Because you know what? That's exactly what was happening. While Europe was supposedly in this long slump, an absolutely brilliant civilization was not just surviving, it was thriving, lighting up a huge part of the globe. Just look at this map. From India, across North Africa, all the way into Spain, this was a world on fire with knowledge and progress. This was the Islamic Golden Age. And it really makes you think about that quote from the philosopher Bertrand Russell, right? If you only look at Western Europe during this time, you're getting such a tiny, narrow piece of the real story. And let's be clear, this was no minor footnote in history. We're talking about more than 600 years, from about the 8th to the 14th century, where the Muslim world was, without a doubt, the global center for science, for innovation, for just about every kind of intellectual discovery. And what they achieved? It's just staggering. It wasn't just in one or two areas. We're talking about foundational breakthroughs across nearly every field you can imagine. Things like, inventing algebra, developing surgical tools that were centuries ahead of their time, groundbreaking work in chemistry and physics, not to mention creating some of the most beautiful architecture the world has ever seen. So you might be asking, what was the real, lasting impact of this golden age? Well, we don't even have to speculate. Western thinkers and historians have told us themselves, and their words are pretty shocking. Just listen to this from Sir Thomas Arnold, a respected British historian. He's not just saying there was some influence, he's arguing that modern European civilization itself might never have arisen at all without the knowledge preserved and advanced by Muslims. That's a massive statement. And it doesn't stop there. The social anthropologist Robert Griffith basically rewrites the timeline. He says, forget about Italy being the cradle of the Renaissance. The real rebirth of Europe started in Muslim-led Spain, where all this science, this culture, this knowledge was flourishing, just waiting to light the spark for the rest of the continent. Okay, so this all leads to a really important, maybe even uncomfortable question. If these contributions were so absolutely fundamental to our shared human history, why are they so often just left out of the story? Why don't we all learn about this? Well, the answer seems to be a pretty difficult one. When we get into the habit of seeing another culture as an enemy, or even just as completely alien, we have this tendency to just ignore or even erase the parts of their story that are actually woven into our own. It's like creating a huge blind spot, and in this case, it means we're missing a core piece of our own foundation. And that, right there, is why this matters so much. This isn't just about correcting old history books. It's about enriching how we see the world today. It forces us to ask, if we got this part of the story so wrong for so long, what else might we be seeing from a narrow, incomplete point of view? What other incredible chapters of our shared human story are just waiting for us to open our eyes and see them?